Jai Shri Ram, sentence equivalence. Your task is to identify two words that fit in the blank. So obviously they must be synonyms. Sometimes they don't appear like synonyms but will fit in. As the level of difficulty increases, you will find that words which are not exactly synonyms do fit in. Let's look at the words below. Arbitrary, random, discriminating, being able to notice the nuances. Nuance. Nuance means a fine difference. Chinna teda. Discriminating mind. Discriminating has one negative meaning which you already know. That means showing partiality to some and bias against others. But that's not the meaning with which the word is being used here. A discriminating mind, a discriminating taste, sense of taste. That means able to distinguish even the niceties. Niceties. Niceties means the finer points, the nuances, the subtle aspects. So, premeditated, with fully planned, pre-planned. Haphazard is careless. Fecund means very fertile, able to produce a lot of offspring. The opposite of fecund is sterile, sterile, sterile. Sterile and its synonym acarpous, acarpous. Acarpous is a word which is very a favorite of the GRE test makers for whatever reason they know best. So please remember the word acarpous. Acarpous means sterile. The opposite is fecund, fertile. So now take a pause. Okay, I'll read the sentence. The director's decision to omit certain scenes from the film seemed uncharacteristically marked by neither consistency nor apparently logic. So if you read the way I read, intone it, and make the necessary inflections as you read, then you will be able to crack it faster. If you read it flatly, then you will miss the point. So the director's decision to omit certain scenes from the film seemed uncharacteristically . That means normally he doesn't do such things. And this is marked by neither consistency. There's no consistency nor any logic. So that's very odd. So let's see what can be the answer. Pause and work. So yes, you got it right. The answer has to be arbitrary. And which is the synonym for arbitrary? I think it should be haphazard. Haphazard. So random. Haphazard can mean random, careless. Okay, let's leave it there. The next one. Tempered, reduce the intensity. Moderate. Embellish, decorate. So tempered and diminish are a pair. So maybe that's the answer. Anyway, the actor's excitement over the new role was dashed when he discovered that the role was only for a minor character. So the answer is obvious. I don't want to waste your time. Yes, it is tempered and diminished. The next one. Let's look at the words below. Pontificate. Pontificate has two meanings, one positive, one negative. The positive meaning simply would mean to officiate as a priest in some religious function, to officiate as the bishop. Because the word pontiff, Pontiff, pontiff means the pope or the high priest or the pradhana archak, the main priest. So pontificating means functioning, officiating as the high priest in some function, religious function. So that's the positive meaning. The implied meaning, pontificating, is to be preachy. Andarki neetulu cheppadamu, gotulu tappadamu. So pontificate is a negative word. मतलब सबको प्रवचन देना और खुद तो बहुत गंदे गंदे काम करना. ठीक है, मतलब ये फेक ढोंगी. So pontificating means hypocritical piety, sanctimoniousness, and being very preachy, moralizing, moralistic, taking the high moral ground and trying to preach to others about morality while oneself immersed in corrupt moral practices. Okay, so the answer has to be amicable. Amicable means friendly and inclined toward harmony. The artist dash all forms of violence. The very idea of harm inspired a shudder. Shudder means shiver. In an implied sense, it means a strong sense of dislike, disgust, and alarm. Yeah, the artist dash all forms. The artist, what do you think? Okay, pontificate. I told you. Eschew, give up, avoid. Shirk, avoid work. Curate means to organize. Curate means to collect and organize and present in an organized manner. Okay, so yes, the answer has to be eschewed and shirked. Though the word shirk actually means avoiding work on the pretext of illness. A shirker is also called a malingerer. Malingerer. To malinger is to avoid work on the excuse, or pretext means excuse, on the pretext of illness. Panam bagale sar. In Telugu, people avoid work by pretending to be unwell. So, dumma marna. तबीयत खराब है बोल के काम चोरी करके भाग जाना, डुम्मा मार देना. So malinger or shirker basically means a person who avoids work on the pretext of illness. Now here in this context, shirk means to avoid. So that comes very close. So the answer is eschewed and shirked. Let's go to the next one. Preclude is prevent. Manifest means to appear. Now the word manifest has a couple of meanings. One, literally as a noun, the word manifest means the list of cargo, the list of passengers and cargo in an aeroplane or a ship. That's one meaning. Second, to manifest means to God appear in human form, an incarnation, avatar. Okay. A manifest lie, that means an obvious lie, a clearly perceptible lie. Manifest stupidity. So I told you three meanings of manifest, all are important. Clouded is confused. Okay, let's see. Her belief in his inherent is natural, within. Her belief in his inherent sincerity dashed the thought that he could sometimes be deceptive. Okay, but because she believed that he is inherently very sincere, what would she have done with a thought that indicates that this fellow could be a rascal, he could cheat too? So what would you do if you were such a person, and if you had such implicit trust in somebody's sincerity? Would you allow such a thought that he could be deceptive remain in the mind? No. So what do you think is the answer? Take a pause and work. I'm also working. Yes, your answer has to be precluded and eliminated. Preclude means prevent, eliminate, though is not exactly similar to preclude. Well, that's the best choice. She prevented it. That's it. Jai Shri Ram. Keep working, and once you gain the knack means the skill, as you know, then you will be able to save time on these vocabulary oriented questions, so that you can spend more time on the reading comprehension, because that will be more challenging. Jai Shri Ram.